Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to be doing a review of King Arthur 2017, starring Charlie Hunnam. This is a 1 out of 5-star movie, and this is a negative review. I'm calling that out right now. I'm very aware of negativity on the internet, and I really don't like adding to it. I'm reviewing this movie because I think it's important for several reasons. I went to this movie because I'm a huge Charlie Hunnam fan, and I'm a huge fantasy movie fan, and so there were a lot of reasons I was really invested. I was really rooting for this film, but I did want to call that out. So if you're like, I don't want to hear a negative review, I get that. You can, here's your off ramp now. This is spoilers free, so I'm going to jump into it. Okay, so King Arthur 2017. Charlie Hunnam does a great job in here. Littlefinger from Game of Thrones is in here as well. And then I think that is about it for... Eric Bana. Eric Bana is in here as well. And Jude Law. And actually, okay, so I'm just going to kind of give a quick summary of my take of the movie. The pacing is fantastic. The pacing of the film is so good that I think it actually takes non-linear storytelling, which we saw really come up and become a thing with Pulp Fiction. This is a Pulp Fiction movie as far as like the pacing in it is extremely good. It's very, very fast, okay? And they do this thing where throughout the movie you're seeing this team of rogues do all these amazing feats, and there are multiple points in the film where it's like, let's plan this out and then let's do it. But rather than have them talk, they just take the talking part and the explaining part, and they interstitch it exactly with the action itself, which gets the story just going so much faster, and is just a much better model. And I think this is one thing that Guy Ritchie is good at. Guy Ritchie is like, keep it fast, keep it fast, keep it fast. Guy Ritchie did the Sherlock movies with Robert Downey Jr. and Jude Law. Just put that together in my head that Jude Law is like one of his, pet actors. I don't mean that in a derogatory way. A lot of directors do that, where they're just people they like to work with. I'm totally down with that. I think it's a good model. I just didn't have a better term in my head than pet actor. Sorry. Okay, so basically, the pacing was the best thing about this movie. It was really fantastic. The special effects, absolutely amazing. Could not have been better. Really well done. The palette of the movie, I thought was a little off. It was very, very dark and really didn't need to be. I'm starting to get a sense of palette, like what are the colors you're choosing to make your movie with? Is this going to be a bright picture? Is it going to be a dark picture? Is it going to be, mostly brown, mostly, I think, man, go watch The Handmaid's Tale. You will see color used in such a masterful way. It's like a tool so color is a major tool in the hands of a skilled director, and I think the palette was a little off for this movie. I'm not sure they got the return on choosing to kind of be dark gray and navy, so kind of interesting. All right, there was just so many things I liked about this movie. We'll get to the part that makes the 1 out of 5 movie. Okay, so the acting was extremely good. I thought Charlie Hunnam did a great job. One of the things I'm seeing right now, I'm a big fan of Grace Randolph. She's the best movie reviewer on the internet, and I have not heard her review for this content. I'm looking forward to it. And one of the things that she says is that, you need to realize when an actor is just not cut out to be a leading man or a leading lady, right? And I'm a huge fan of Charlie Hunnam. I really liked him in Pacific Rim, and I really liked him in this. But, and I think he did, I don't think he could have done a better performance. This is Charlie Hunnam. I think he really grew as an actor in Sons of Anarchy. That's where I watched him. And I think he's just a fantastic actor. But America just is not, they're not buying what he's putting down. And so let's talk about the money, right? This movie costs $175 million to make. and it made $14 million this weekend. It didn't even make 10% of its budget. It came in number 3 after Guardians of the Galaxy, which made like some ridiculous number, like $60 million. It was beat by Amy Schumer's Snatched. Which the reason that's a problem is her movie cost $17 million. Her movie cost $42 million, and Snatched made $17 million. So, like, that is a low, low action film comparatively, and no CGI, and still beat it at the box office. So this was a hard reject from American culture. And these are domestic numbers, so America just looked at it and said, no, I'm not in. That's hard, because that means that Charlie Hunnam's going to have to either go back to television, or he's going to have to start taking roles as a character actor, or he's going to have to continue to go forward and try again. It's hard. I think it's going to be hard to sell people on a dude who took a $175 million budget and turned it into a $14 million return. Now, of course, the director, Guy Ritchie, he's highly responsible for that as well. There was so much that was good with this movie, okay? Hunnam was fantastic. Jude Law was fantastic. Littlefinger from Game of Thrones. The acting, there was this female mage in the film, fantastic, just extremely well played. Hounsou was in there. He's an actor who's been around for a while. Really, really stellar. There was no bad acting. Special effects were amazing. Pacing was fantastic. All right, so what was the problem with this movie? Writing. There was just zero respect for the writing. You get the sense when you looked at this that, one, they didn't think that the writing was going to be that important to begin with. I get the idea that maybe Guy Ritchie wrote a lot of the script, or some of the script. I also get the idea that a lot of people were involved in this script, and this was a gumbo. It was like, everybody's going to throw in their cool ideas, and this is going to work out great. This really is King Arthur Suicide Squad. Like, it is all flash and no writing. And the writing was very, very, very bad. And I really got the sense from this film that, oh yeah, let's take in these executive notes. It's just got that written all over it. And also, there were just these obvious writing concerns that needed to be addressed that just were absolutely not addressed in the film. And so one of them is, okay, so let's talk about it. I'm going to say I did not understand this movie. I saw it with a friend, and we went together. And when we were done, I was like, I told him it was fun. Oh, that's another thing. Another thing I should say, this movie is very unusual. I've seen so many movies in my lifetime that are a great story, bad ending. This is a bad story, great ending. It has a very strong ending, actually. While I'm at it, just reminding, massive impact within the film of video games. There was some executive or someone in the movie was like, we need to make this movie look and play like a video game. And near the end, there's a lot of cool things that happen at the very end. The actual I can't spoil it. I'm not gonna spoil it. All right. The writing was bad. It was just bad. And it's such a shame, because there were all the ingredients were excellent to have. And I know the reason my wife was like, what justified spending $175 million on this movie? And I told her, and I still think this is true, I think they were 100% right to spend $175 million on this movie. They were trying to launch a franchise, right? You're talking 3 movies. If you get a franchise running nowadays, that's $1 billion plus. So that's a fifth of what you could make at minimum on a franchise, right? So franchise films are worth a fortune now. So this was their swing to start a franchise. And on $14 million, trust me, you're not going to start a franchise. Not on a $14 million return on a $175 million investment, right? So it was it was very sad to me that there was just so little respect paid for writing. The story is important. Okay, so I saw this movie. I watched it. So here's the issue. This movie is only a portion of King Arthur's story. Okay, and Merlin is not in it. All right, now I understand that some people may consider that a spoiler, but I think it's absolutely necessary to enjoy this movie, okay? They gave one-line sentence at the beginning where they were saying, Merlin's not here now. But I spent the rest of the movie looking for Merlin. Where's Merlin? Where's Merlin? Where's Merlin? Right? Merlin's one of the coolest things in the King Arthur story. He's nowhere in the film. I mean, nowhere in the film. And you're like, why? This is ridiculous. Right? And it was confusing. It was just confusing. And that was the whole issue is you see him running around. You're really not sure what the stakes are. You don't know what needs to happen when. Oh my gosh. Worst problem of reluctant hero. Okay? So he's like, so King Arthur's like, oh, I don't want to be king. And, and the world just isn't structured like this anymore. I think there used to be a time where, maybe you could believe in a reluctant hero, but the reality is everybody's scrambling for everything today, right? And I think everybody understands that. It's so hard to get what you want today if you're going for it, that the idea of you're going to sit back and mope and tell people that you don't want something and then you're going to get it is ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous, right? And so this was just, and it was upsetting to me because I had I had some stake in this film. I wanted this movie to succeed for a few different reasons. I love fantasy movies. They're pretty rare that they succeed in Hollywood. Lord of the Rings is one of the few. The Hobbit is one of the few. And even those, they have major detractors. And those were phenomenal films, right? The other thing is, I'm a big fan of Charlie Hunnam. I really want to see his career take off. And this is a dagger to the heart of his career. Pacing, fast-paced films. I'm a really big fan of fast-paced films, and I wanted to see it succeed for that reason. I was really in this movie's corner, and then the other one is Dungeons and Dragons. So this movie has a hard lesson for Dungeons and Dragons to learn. I'm starting to get very worried about the Dungeons and Dragons movie, and the reason why is the people who are making the Dungeons and Dragons movie think that they can make a straight fantasy movie. Excuse me. And that's all they need to do. And that's just not the case. I think the great movie that needs to be told for Dungeons and Dragons is a group of college players playing their game, and then seeing how the actions for the choices for their player characters impact them as people. That's the story of Dungeons and Dragons, because that's what that game does. Dungeons and Dragons impacts players directly, and your heart and soul goes into how you're playing your character in a good game, and that's that. And we're never going to see that. And people think that Dungeons and Dragons is just another fantasy film, and it's just not. Right? You need to approach it in a different way, because Americans really don't like fantasy films, and this just continues to be shown time and time again. And so I was very disappointed that this movie went the route it did. And then also I just want to say, when we were done, my buddy explained the movie to me and said, oh, well, if you know Arthurian legend, you know that this connected here and this connected here. And, the reality is, my understanding of Arthurian legend is King Arthur pulls the sword from the stone, and then he starts Camelot. He's the king. He's actually being a very good king. Him and his knights go out and quest for Excalibur, and then they come back with Excalibur. Guinevere falls in love with Lancelot. The Round Table is created, probably before, a little earlier in the story than I said. And everything's going great, and then everything goes south. And Morgan Le Fay and Merlin are in the mix throughout, right? That's not, I don't feel like I'm ignorant of this story, right? I have 2 degrees. I have a degree in political science, and I'm a master's in technology management, right? And I could not understand this movie. I was paying attention to it. I was engaged. And I will say my buddy followed it better, right? And he was able to explain, hey, this, and this. And I was like, oh, that sounds like a better movie than I watched. But there were just triggers. There's like things where you're watching the film and you're like, why are they making this choice? And the idea that you can hide Merlin, you can only do that if you assume you're going to get a sequel. This movie was written assuming it would get a sequel, which is ludicrous. Like, you know, this is a risk, man. And there was just assumptions made left and right. And the biggest assumption was that the writer is not important, and that you can just throw on as many notes as you want, and you can just jumble up the story as much as you like. You throw out whatever parts you want and keep whatever you want. And I was frustrated. I really feel Hollywood needs to respect the pen. It just absolutely has to respect the pen, and we're just not there yet. And this movie is a prime example. And I was definitely disappointed. So I apologize for the negative review. I really try to keep it positive most of the time. The reason why I took the time to review this movie, because most of the time when I see a movie and I have a negative review, I don't even bother doing it. I think one of the reasons why I took the time to actually review this was the Dungeons and Dragons movie. I think there's a lot to learn from this movie that will be very, very relevant about the Dungeons and Dragons movie. So that's my review of King Arthur. Thank you.